Imagine loving someone with your entire soul, building a life, a home, a family, only to find out 4 decades later that the person sleeping beside you was a complete stranger. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and stay updated with more mind-blowing true crime stories, both known and hidden. For 40 years, Thomas Bryant believed in one truth: his wife. She was his anchor, his confidant, the love of his life. Together, they built a life from the ground up. They raised 2 children, shared laughter, endured trials, and grew old side by side. It was beautiful, it was real, it was unbreakable. Then came January 14, 2024. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, mingling with the soft crackle of bacon. Melody stood at the stove, humming an old gospel hymn as she flipped pancakes with practiced ease. Thomas, smiling from across the room, watched the woman he had adored for 4 decades. Then, a knock. Not a neighborly tap, not a delivery. This was firm, intentional. 3 loud knocks that pierced the calm. Melody wiped her hands on a towel and opened the door. FBI, guns drawn, no warning, no explanation, not local police, not detectives, the FBI. Thomas froze, his heart pounded. What was this? Who were they really here for? And then, the words that shattered his world. "Sir, your wife is not who you think she is." He turned to Melody, expecting confusion, fear, denial. But she didn't resist. She didn't cry. She already knew. And in that moment, Thomas Bryant's reality unraveled. Who was this woman he had shared his life with? What had she done? And why did it take federal agents, not the police, to come for her? Flashback summer 1982, Charlotte, North Carolina. The city was alive. The sound of jazz drifted from open bars. Neon signs blinked along Tryon Street. Inside a popular lounge called Harper's, 30-year-old Thomas Bryant nursed a drink. He was tall, sharp-featured, with a calm presence. A man who had made something of himself, rising from a small Mississippi town to a prestigious engineering firm. That night, he wasn't thinking about projects or contracts. He was simply unwinding. Then, he saw her. At the end of the bar, sitting alone, was a woman who didn't fit the crowd. She wore a deep burgundy dress, her hair cascading in soft waves. Quiet, calm, composed. She sipped wine like she'd done it 1,000 times. There was a mystery in her silence. Thomas approached, confident but kind. "Thomas, VO. A woman like you shouldn't drink alone." "Melody, VO. And yet, here I am. Her name, Melody Harper." They talked for hours. She was smart, elegant, and guarded. She deflected personal questions, gently. "Thomas, where are you from?" "Melody, a little bit of everywhere." "Thomas, got family nearby?" "Melody, nope, just me." "Thomas, what brings you to Charlotte?" "Melody, a fresh start." He didn't press. By 1983, he was in love. She didn't need gifts or grand gestures. She was calm, present, mysterious. When he proposed and she paused before saying yes, he thought nothing of it. They married at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse. No guests from her side. No stories of her childhood. She claimed her parents died young. No photos. No family traditions. His mother whispered after the wedding. Thomas's mother. "She got no people? No roots?" "Thomas, she's just private, Ma." He believed her. In 1984, they moved to Madison, Wisconsin. A quiet neighborhood, church on Sundays. 2 kids, Marcus in '85 and Danielle in '89. Melody was a model wife, baking, volunteering, supporting. Everyone admired her quiet strength. But over the years, little things added up. No childhood photos, no visitors. She paid in cash when they traveled. Still, Thomas never questioned her because he was in love, until the FBI came, and his perfect life dissolved like smoke. Even after 40 years, Aaron Price never questioned the woman he married. He trusted her with his whole heart. But on March 11, 2024, that trust shattered, because Madeline Price never existed. She insisted on using cash for everything. Never once touched a credit card. She kept important documents. Passport, birth certificate, social security card, under lock and key. When Aaron asked, she chuckled. Madeline. Too many identity thieves out there. He believed her. Why wouldn't he? She was his wife. Exactly 40 years, 6 months, and 3 days had passed since Aaron stood in front of a Franklin County judge and promised to spend the rest of his life with Madeline. 40 years of shared dreams, family road trips, inside jokes, and unwavering love. He had built a life around her. But that morning, the smell of pancakes and fresh coffee vanished into dread. The knock had changed everything. The agents, federal, not local, stood silent now. Their weapons holstered, but their fingers resting near the triggers. The once cozy kitchen was still, stripped of its warmth and safety. 6 men in black suits, stone-faced, prepared for confrontation. Madeline stood near the door, her breathing shallow, her knuckles white as she gripped the counter. She didn't demand answers, didn't protest. That silence, the absence of denial, was what chilled Aaron to the bone. The lead agent stepped forward, his badge caught the kitchen light. FBI. Special Investigations Division. FBI agent, sir, she is not who you think she is. Aaron. No, she isn't. And she never was. Time froze. Aaron looked at Madeline, expecting a reaction, a breakdown, but she just stood there, staring at the floor, saying nothing. The agent placed a folder on the table. Old photographs, government files. One image made Aaron lean forward. A mugshot, cold eyes, familiar cheekbones, her but not her, and under it, a name, Nina Whitmore. Aaron's heart dropped. FBI agent. Your wife has been living under a false identity for 4 decades. Aaron. No, she's Madeline Price, my wife. We have kids, a whole life, you're wrong. But Madeline, Nina, said nothing. The silence told its own story. FBI agent. Her real name is Nina Whitmore. In 1978, she was involved in an armed bank robbery in Charleston, South Carolina. A security guard was fatally shot. She was the getaway driver. Before police could arrest her, she vanished. We believe she fled the country, but she stayed, changed her name, and started over. Aaron, that's not her, that can't be. The agent slid over an arrest warrant dated September 1978. The crime, aliases, last sightings all confirmed. And finally Madeline, no Nina, spoke. Nina, I was young, I didn't shoot anyone, I was just the driver, I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Aaron, you helped them, you ran, you lied, to me, to our children. Nina, I had no choice. Aaron, you always had a choice. Flashback, Charleston, South Carolina, September 3rd, 1978, a downtown bank on King Street. The plan was simple, get in, grab the cash, get out. Nina Whitmore, 23, was young and reckless, too deep with the wrong people. Her job was simple. Wait 3 minutes, drive off when they returned. But something went wrong. A security guard, Paul Jefferson, 27, went for his weapon. A shot was fired. Paul collapsed. Nina froze. But it was too late. They fled and she disappeared. No fingerprints, no sightings, no trail, just a ghost. Until today. Back in the kitchen, the lead agent signaled. 2 agents moved forward, cuffs in hand. Aaron could only watch as his wife, the mother of his children, the grandmother of his grandkids, was taken away in handcuffs. Nina turned to him one last time. Nina, please, believe me, I'm not that person anymore. Aaron, I don't even know who you are. And then, she was gone. 3:45 p.m. Aaron sat in the same chair where it had all fallen apart. The house was silent. The only sound, the ticking of the clock above the sink. 7 hours had passed since she was taken. Her final words still echoed in his mind. Please believe me. I've changed. For 40 years he had loved a lie. For 40 years he was husband to a woman who never existed. Outside, the sun dipped behind the trees, casting a burnt orange hue across the neighborhood. But Aaron didn't notice. The world no longer felt real. By nightfall, the news had spread. Madeline Price wasn't just another grandmother in the suburbs, she was front-page news. Neighbors whispered behind blinds. Phones rang non-stop. His brother called from Memphis. Aaron's brother, man. I don't even know what to say. His co-workers left voicemails, hesitant and awkward. Aaron's co-worker. If you need anything, just call me, okay? What could anyone say? For 40 years, Aaron Price had been a respected civil engineer, a faithful husband, a doting father. Now, he was the man who didn't know his own wife, who had built a life with a fugitive, and who could no longer trust the memories he held most dear. The house, their home, was now a ghost of what it once was. By sundown, both Marcus and Layla had arrived, and the truth had finally settled in. Nothing would ever be the same again. Darius, their eldest, had always been the strong one, the protector. He'd inherited his father's calm but carried it like a blade, sharp, controlled. Now he paced the kitchen like a storm trapped indoors, hands clenching the back of a chair, jaw locked so tight it could splinter. Darius, my whole childhood, was a lie. His voice was low, raw. There was something in it that Emery had never heard before. Naomi, his younger daughter, curled up on the couch. Tears stained her cheeks, arms wrapped around her knees. But her expression wasn't like her brother's. Hers was torn, soft, but resolute. Naomi, she changed, Dad. That woman we knew, she's not that person anymore. Emery felt like a referee in a game where no one could win. Darius, she lied to us, all of it, everything about her. She wasn't who she claimed to be, and she was never going to tell us. She was going to take it to the grave. Naomi, she's still our mother. Are we just supposed to erase everything she ever did for us? She raised us, Darius. She loved us. Darius, did she? Or was that just another performance? Another way to stay invisible, using us to hide in plain sight. You ever think of that? The words hit like stones, and Emery had no answers. That night, after the kids had finally gone to bed, sleep didn't come. How could it? How do you close your eyes next to someone for 40 years, then wake up and find out they never truly existed? The house felt heavy, quiet in the worst way. He wandered into the living room, eyes landing on framed memories, wedding photos, school portraits, family vacations, smiles that now felt distant, maybe even false. Had it all been an illusion? He opened a cabinet and found the old home videotapes, dusty, untouched for years. Sliding one into the player, the screen flickered. There she was, Madeline, or rather, Nina. Smiling, laughing, holding baby Darius, bouncing him as he giggled, tucking Naomi into bed, whispering, "I love you," leaning into him during their 10th anniversary dance in the living room. The moments were real, the memories were real. She'd lied about her past, but had she lied about their life? Emery held his head in his hands. What was he supposed to feel now? In the days that followed, the chaos only grew. Reporters circled like vultures. Reporter 1, Mr. Price, how does it feel knowing your wife was a fugitive for decades? Reporter 2, did you suspect anything? Reporter 3, do you still love her? That last question hit him like a gut punch. Did he? Could he? She was the mother of his children, the woman he built a life with, but she also deceived him, tore apart their world in an instant. He said nothing. He simply walked back inside, locked the door, and stared at the empty chair across the kitchen table, the place where Madeline always sat, where their life used to be. He didn't know if he'd ever stop loving her, but he did know this. He'd never truly know who she was, and that more than anything was the cruelest truth. The air inside the facility stung his nose, disinfectant, sweat, and something colder. Something that clung to the walls like secrets that refused to die. This wasn't just any correctional center. This was a maximum security prison for those who had run out of time and second chances. And now, his wife was one of them. Emery's palms were damp, his chest tight, his heartbeat slow but heavy, like footsteps before a funeral. 2 months. That's how long it had been since the day everything collapsed. 2 months of answering questions he didn't have answers for. 2 months of staring at the ceiling each night, wondering if his entire marriage had been a stage play. Now, here he was, face to face with the woman he had loved, or thought he had. The visitation room wasn't like in the movies. No glass partitions, no telephones between them, just a line of metal tables and bolted down chairs. Broken families meeting the ghosts of people they once knew. Some inmates stared ahead, hollow. Others clung to visitors like they were trying to hold time still. Then he saw her, Madeline, or Nina Whitmore. She sat alone near the back. Her shoulders looked smaller now, her posture frail, her once glowing skin dull, worn by sleepless nights and cement walls. Her hair, once always styled for Sunday service, now pulled into a limp braid. But it was her eyes that shook him. For 40 years those eyes had been his home. Now, they looked like a haunted house. She swallowed, her lips trembling. "Nina, do you hate me?" Emery's hands curled beneath the table. He wanted to scream yes, to tell her she broke him, broke their kids, but the words stayed buried. He looked at her, the woman who had tucked their children into bed, held his hand through surgeries, danced with him in their kitchen. She had built a life with him, brick by brick, lie by lie. Long silence. She didn't cry, she didn't look away, she just waited, bracing for the impact. Finally he spoke. "Aaron, I don't know who you were back then, but I know the woman who raised my kids, the woman who stood by me through everything. That's the woman I love, and I don't know how to stop." Nina shut her eyes. One tear slid down her cheek. He had forgiven her, but he'd never forget. Emery didn't attend every day of the trial. He told himself he would, but the first day he stepped into the courtroom and saw her, orange jumpsuit, shackles on her wrists, something broke in him. The room was packed. Old friends, neighbors, church members, all here to see the fall of a woman they once admired. The prosecution was merciless. Prosecutor Nina Whitmore wasn't just an accomplice. She participated in a violent robbery that led to a man's death. She vanished for nearly half a century. While her victim's family mourned, she lived free, raising a family on stolen time. The defense argued otherwise. Defense attorney: she was young, pressured, manipulated. She had spent 40 years being a law-abiding citizen, a wife, a mother, a contributor to her community. She's not the same woman she was in 1978, but the law doesn't weigh who you became. It only weighs what you did. And when the verdict came, Bryson sat silently at the back of the courtroom, heart thundering in his chest like a drumbeat that wouldn't stop. Judge guilty. The word landed like a stone. Madeline, or rather, Nina Whitmore, slumped forward, shoulders shaking ever so slightly. "Judge Nina Whitmore, you are hereby sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 15. There was no screaming, no outburst, no desperate cries for mercy, just the cold metallic clink of chains as the bailiffs led her away. January 5th, 2024, 2 weeks after the verdict, 2 weeks since Bryson watched the woman he had once adored be taken away in cuffs. And now, he sat across from her, one final time, in a sterile, soulless visitation room, the last time he would ever see her. "Nina, I don't expect you to wait for me." Bryson looked down at his hands, at the gold wedding band that still clung to his finger. He'd tried to take it off, more than once, but every time, it felt like tearing away something that had been real, even if it was built on a lie. "Aaron, I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore. Nina, don't let my past destroy your future." He nodded slowly, jaw tight, throat aching. This was goodbye. He knew it. And deep down so did she. There were no more words, no more explanations. He stood, turned, and walked away. As he stepped outside, the winter air slapped him across the face, sharp, unforgiving. Freedom. But it didn't feel like freedom, it felt like a void. For 40 years he had loved a woman who never truly existed. But the love had felt real. And that, more than anything, was what haunted him. The Sunday dinners, the family trips, the way she used to squeeze his hand when she thought no one was watching. They weren't fake. But the truth had made everything feel like a memory soaked in betrayal. Somewhere far away in a cold gray prison cell, Nina Whitmore opened her eyes to the sound of metal doors slamming shut. The life she had built, the family she had created, the peace she had stolen, gone. No coffee, no laughter, no holiday mornings, just cement walls and long shadows, just regret. She had escaped the past once. She had erased her name, rewritten her story. But the past doesn't forget. The past always catches up. The world moved on without her. The kids stopped visiting. The grandkids would grow up not knowing her. And Bryson, he never went back. The woman he had loved was no longer real. She was a ghost, a haunting memory. Some betrayals cut too deep to forgive. Some truths shatter everything. But the question is, would you have forgiven her? Would you have walked away or stayed? Can someone ever truly erase their past? Or does it just wait until the perfect moment to destroy everything? How well do we really know the people closest to us? One man loved his wife for 40 years, only to discover she was someone else entirely. Now, he must live with a question that will follow him for the rest of his life. Was the love real, or was it just another part of the deception? If this story made you stop and think, made you question what you believe, made you wonder what you would have done, then subscribe right now. Because here we tell real gripping stories that challenge everything you thought you knew. Truth is always stranger than fiction. Hit that subscribe button and ask yourself one final question. How well do you really know the people in your life?